The most important thing a weightlifter can learn how to do if you want to extend your shelf life of weightlifting pain-free or get out of pain is you need to learn how to blow up a balloon in a flexed position. Now I describe and demonstrate how to blow up the balloon at the 10-minute mark, but you really should watch everything up to that in order to really understand the problems associated with too much spinal extension, which a lot of people who lift weights are in. Let's compare two different types of breathing patterns. One is dysfunctional, which is going to be thoracic extension, and the other, which is me, is functional, which is thoracic expansion. So here you're going to see the difference, side by side. The individual who's extended arches his back. I just expand. And I'll run it again. He arches his back while I just expand. The biggest difference you'll notice is that you barely see me do anything. His entire body moves. It completely arches. So when he takes a breath in, he extends his spine, which brings his head and neck forward, and now he's neck breathing and lower back breathing. What I'm doing is, because I'm in that flexed, thoracically flexed position, my rib cage is expanding backwards. Now I'm already expanded, so you're not seeing, like, in a good way. So you're not going to see much, but that's precisely the point. When people breathe, the reality is you shouldn't see much at all. It should be very, there's not a lot going on. There shouldn't be. Under normal circumstances, there shouldn't be. And blowing up a balloon, you really shouldn't see much. The only time you should see a lot of this is if you're running a marathon, or you're exerting yourself to a maximum capacity. But during normal life, you should be breathing like you see me breathing, which is you don't really see much at all. Why? Because I'm already expanded, I'm not using my neck, I'm not using my lower back, and I'm not stuck in a state of extension. The other gentleman is, and it's not even because he's a weightlifter, he works out. It's because he sits at a desk all day in a forward head posture. He arches his back, head comes forward, he stares at a computer screen, overfocuses his eyes, puts his neck in a position where the brain says, oh, it's so easy to use that neck to just lift that rib cage. And what any scientist can tell you is that hyperactive back extensor muscle activity in patients often leads to abnormal lifting of the ribs and chest, which reduces the range of motion of the diaphragm and affects the activity of abdominal and deep core muscles, ultimately having an impact on lung capacity. People who are extended, and that's most weightlifters, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You might say, no, it's not me. It probably is you, because you extend your spine. You exert so much effort. That's a normal part, and this is the other thing. You might say, no, I lift with a neutral spine. You probably do not. Unless you really study the science, anyone who comes in to see me for pain is in extension. They're in spinal extension on one or both sides of the body, which also will mean that a pelvis is forward in an anterior pelvic tilt on one or both sides of the body. Quite often, bigger, stronger, people who lift a lot, squat a lot, deadlift a lot. It doesn't matter if you think you're stacking your rib cage over your pelvis and you think you're maintaining a neutral spine. If you're already extended, you probably are not lifting with, I'm going to say you're not going to be lifting with the neutral spine. You're lifting in extension even though you think you're lifting in a state of neutral spine. It's impossible for that to be the case. I want to make one thing perfectly clear. The spinal extension is not a problem as long as you do not live in spinal extension. If your spine extends while you're working out, no problem. But if you're living in spinal extension, but you are not aware that you're living in spinal extension, that is a physiologic state of fight or flight. I don't want you living in a physiologic state of fight or flight when you're trying to go to sleep at night, when you're just trying to get through your day. If you lift weights and extend, no big deal, as long as you can get out of it. But most people who are not aware of these issues are living in spinal extension and don't even know it. Breathing is the most basic human movement. When your spine is extended for any reason, because your back is too tight, because you lift too many weights, because you just sit at a desk all day, your ability to diaphragmatically breathe, to breathe with those two big breathing muscles on the right side, as you'll see, it's bigger. That underlying asymmetry, that's your true core. that is your true core. That is the core of human life, because you can go a while without food and water, but you can't go very long without air. So breathing is the most fundamental thing humans can do. Now, you'll see that the right side and the left side are not even remotely the same, which means your lower spine, your lumbar spine, is going to be pulled to the right by that bigger right diaphragm, because that's where the diaphragms attach, plural. They're one muscle, but they basically act in two different ways. They act independently. They have innervation. They have a phrenic nerve for the right one and a phrenic nerve for the left, a vagus for the right and a vagus for the left. They're not the same. They look like the same muscle, but they're not. And that asymmetry creates a big difference in where your brain positions your body. From the book Gait Analysis, this is a classic book. Jacqueline Perry states, equal sharing of body weight would place the body vector through the center of the support area. In reality, the normal quiet standing posture tends to be shifted slightly to the right of midline, When you're deadlifting, when you're squatting, when you're shoulder pressing, when you're bench pressing, you're likely doing that to the right of where you think you are, and that is because of how you are formed, how you function as a right dominant asymmetrical human. So your core is bigger and stronger on the right side than your left side. To me, someone who used to lift a lot more than I do lift, if I had known that back when my weightlifting days, I could have solved myself a lot or prevented a lot of problems. Now, what about the anterior pelvic tilt that so many weightlifters exhibit? Overarched lower backs, butt pushed out, pelvis forward on one or both sides. Well, the arcuate ligaments of the diaphragms blend fascially with the psoas, quadratus lumborum, and transverse abdominis, your abdominals. Altered tone of these muscles will affect the functioning of the diaphragm and vice versa. So, if your spine is extended and your pelvis is forward on one or both sides, which it likely is, that will affect the tone of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm cannot contract normally because the spine is being compressed and tightened. So what do? You use your neck to pull up, and you use your lower back to arch your back, and that helps facilitate airflow. But as you do that, it tightens up your diaphragm. The diaphragm cannot go down and up like it should. It can't pump, which keeps the hip flexors, the psoas, tight. The QL. How many people have lateral pelvic tilts or anterior pelvic tilts, whatever you want to call them? And that's just one sign of an overall systemic imbalance. And they find out about their QL muscle. The only time anyone knows they have a QL muscle is when they're in pain. I don't want you to know that you have a QL muscle, but it doesn't matter. You can't treat the QL muscle because that's just part of a bigger core system of breathing that is now dysfunctional. Now, why else is an anterior pelvic tilt a problem? Well, anterior pelvic tilt, you're going to have overactive hip flexors, overactive low back muscles, and when those two muscle groups hip flexors, low back, when those two muscle groups are overactive, they are actively inhibiting or preventing your hamstrings, your glutes, and your abdominals from working properly the way that they're supposed to work to pull the pelvis back and stabilize it. It'll be dumped forward. You're still stuck in this pattern of dysfunction. Now, you might say, hey, I got great abs. I got a six-pack. Yes, you might, but they're not functional if your pelvis is forward and your ribs are up, and those abs are they're eccentrically lengthened, they're being pulled apart. Now they become postural stabilizer muscles instead of breathing muscles. That's reverse of normal life. So anytime I see someone with big lats and a big chest and really, striated abs, I'm already thinking, man, that poor guy or that poor gal, they're going to have major problems in the future because they're not breathing. I mean, they're breathing, but they're breathing with their neck and their lower back. They are not diaphragmatic. Their nervous systems are not balanced. And you often, I'm so tight all the time. I'm stretching. They can't touch their toes. I saw a guy in the gym yesterday. He's holding on to dumbbells, 30-pound dumbbells, to see if he can touch his toes. Like, it's not going to work. Everything he was doing he was living. Every exercise he did, and he's a big, strong guy. Everything he was doing, he was completely extended. His planks, he's completely extended. All his ab work, because I guess with ab day, he was completely extended. His abs were being strengthened in an eccentrically lengthened position, which is complete and utter dysfunction. Well, besides the pain aspect, if you're not in pain and you're extended, does it matter? Well, I think it does, first of all, because once your not breathing with your diaphragms for too long and your neck breathing. Neck breathing is considered disordered breathing. You are now heading towards a disorder. There's books written about breathing disorders, and it puts your fight or flight system on high alert. You stay chronically tense, anxious. You're ungrounded. Your body can't move properly. So for any other reason, once, I almost fell off my table. Once, I get very passionate about this subject. Once you are extended, you cannot rotate properly. Your spine is locked up. You now want to play sports, you want to do whatever else you want to do in your life. You're not going through full ranges of motion. You can only move with strain. So eventually it's going to catch up to you. But here's another conclusion from a study. Impaired inspiratory muscle strength, diaphragms, was associated with reduced balance ability and limitations in activities required for daily living. Enhanced motor function, improved respiration, and rehabilitation programs should prioritize the activation of diaphragm function to improve overall outcomes. So blowing up a balloon is one of the best exercises you can do to restore diaphragmatic pumping. Why? Because it will, done correctly, it will expand your rib cage to make room for the diaphragms to drop. Once the spine is extended, the diaphragms stay in a dropped position. So basically, they have to come up and then back down. When they're stuck in a down position, they move the ribs, the bottom ribs, forward and up, and that's why people look like they have rib flares. When you're extended, your ribs go up. In that position, the diaphragms are descended. A descended diaphragm has nowhere to go. It's already down. So it has to come up first and then back down to restart the breathing process. So what you have to do is you have to put yourself into a state of flexion, a rounded back, just like you see that I'm in. Because again, you're extended. The pelvis has to be tilted back. So in that position, my pelvis is, a normal extended person would be like this. I am going like this, and I hope I'm matching the picture orientation here. All right, that is a rounded back. So that's number one. My feet are close together. My knees are being held together, and you'll see pictures of this. My back is rounded. I am on my sit bones. Number two, all you have to do at that point is hold that position as you breathe in. And if you can do that, your rib cage will move back. And again, I hope I'm matching the orientation because I'm looking at the picture. I don't know if it's going to show up going in the opposite direction. But either way, when you take a breath in, your back has to move back. If it doesn't move back, the only thing you're going to do is, like what you saw in the video previously, is arch your back and kick in your neck. And now you're just still stuck in the same state of dysfunctional, impaired breathing, which leads to all sorts of problems, including anxiety, tension, pain, and basic overall unhappiness. Now, when you blow up the balloon, you inhale through your nose, blow into the balloon. At the end of the exhalation, you put your tongue up to the roof of your mouth to prevent the air from going back in. You do not, or you're not supposed to, pinch the balloon, nor bite down on the balloon to prevent the air from going back in. You simply exhale, put your tongue up against the roof of your mouth while the balloon stays in your mouth, between your lips, and you pause for 5 seconds before you take a breath in again, and you do that for 4 or 5 breaths or until the balloon, you want to stop before the balloon pops in your face, which has happened to me numerous times. It's kind of startling the first time it happens, but then after that you get used to it, just pops in your face. So this is what it looks like. You inhale, blow into the balloon, pause. Breathe in, exhale, pause, tongue up. You do that, you blow it up, you do 3 or 4 sets of that, and you move on. Now here's a video. You're not going to see much, but again, that's the point. All you're going to see is my body, my back expanding slightly, but not much else. So here it is. I take a breath in through my nose. I blow into the balloon. This is from my right side. I'm sitting on my left sit bone, which you'll see next. I breathe in through my nose. I expand my rib cage. Again, you do not see this happening. You do not see this happening. All right, next, from the back, I just scooch myself over onto my left sit bone a little bit more. Because remember, you're not symmetrical. So your brain will be sensing your right diaphragm on the right side of your body more than your left. So we need to shift you over to your left sit bone a little bit as you're sensing your left heel on the floor and learn to expand, because it's the left mid-back area that has the harder time expanding with air. So that's where we're really trying to go. You're trying to aim the air into your left mid-low back area. And then from the left side, it's the same thing. My left hand is holding my knees together. I want my knees slightly higher than my hips. That's important to help keep the hip flexors off. My whole body is in a state of flexion, and I'm learning to expand my rib cage as I breathe to make room for the diaphragms to go back, to go down and up again. And once that occurs, and if that can occur for you, your neck should be more relaxed, your lower back should be more relaxed. It doesn't mean you're stable. All you did was expand, which is a good thing, but you would still need, from a postural restoration perspective, that doesn't mean anything other than that you've expanded. It doesn't mean your pelvis, doesn't mean you now know how to shift into your pelvis appropriately. It doesn't mean that you have all the muscles of your lower body working properly. It doesn't mean that you have good arm swing going on or torso rotation. Doesn't mean you're stable. Even you could be really rigid. That's not the same as stable. Extended people are rigid. They are not stable. They're tight. Big difference. So that's just what this technique is. It's to help restore, as a beginning part of a program of restabilization. You have to relearn how to do the most basic human pattern, which is breathing by using your diaphragms rather than your neck or your lower back, which is what a lot of extended powerlifting, real strong, muscled up type of individuals are experiencing.